Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, Speaker Pelosi in San Diego County. We'll take you live to a rare visit happening in Oceanside as the impeachment inquiry rolls on. And Election Day is 1 year out. How the process of voting is about to get more convenient.
Well, those federal dollars help us to fight those fires and to pay for those things, because for a small agency like Alpine or a small city, if one of these large incidents happens, we don't have the funds to take care of that.
Money needed during a fire disaster, local reaction to a presidential threat to cut off federal money. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Monday, November 4th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. We start with a new week in the impeachment inquiry of President Trump and a key player in San Diego County tonight. House Democrats have released transcripts of closed-door testimony from a former ambassador to Ukraine and a former top aide to the Secretary of State. We'll have details on that and new testimony today a bit later. But right now, let's go live to Oceanside. KPBS reporter Shalina Chatlani is covering a visit by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Shalina?
Yeah, that's right, Maya. I'm here on the scene, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just left a few moments ago. Now, the purpose of this event was talk about ethics in campaigns and getting rid of dark money in politics. She didn't specifically talk about impeachment, but she definitely alluded to it.
You cannot accept any assistance from a foreign government. It's not about it. That's not allowed. That's not allowed. But one difference that this bill makes, if someone approaches you, you have to report it. If they report, but right now the law is that you cannot receive any foreign assistance. That's what makes some of the current conversation curiouser and curiouser.
I don't like when a handful of special interests are dominating the political system.
Levin, who's a Democrat, is running for re-election in 2020. He flipped the 49th congressional district seat in 2018 from Republican Darrell Issa. When Levin came to Oceanside for a public forum on Saturday, I asked him whether he thought inviting Pelosi would be a bad look in what many call a highly partisan political environment.
This district that I serve in was historically a conservative district. However, Hillary Clinton won the district by 7 points. I do know that we've got a lot of great support and momentum out there, and the work that I'm doing in many cases appeals not only to one political party.
Levin says the impeachment inquiry is a multi-step process. After an investigation, he says the House Intelligence Committee will write a report and send it to the House Judiciary Committee, which will then decide on whether and how to proceed.
I think it's important for everyone to understand that the work of the House Intel Committee has been done in a fair and equitable fashion, with Republicans and Democrats receiving equal time.
Now, I did get to sneak in a question there at the end with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi about the next steps in the impeachment process, and she says that she's confident that she'll be able to make it work even if Republicans aren't as willing to play ball, and she says it's going to be fair and equitable as much as she can make it. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
Great. Thanks for that report, Shalina. And now to the new developments today in Washington. President Donald Trump is calling out the whistleblower who set the impeachment inquiry into motion, saying he or she should be the one to testify. Daryl Forges has tonight's update.
With the impeachment cloud looming, President Donald Trump is demanding the whistleblower's identity to be revealed. In a tweet Monday morning, the president said in part, the whistleblower gave false information and dealt with corrupt politician Schiff. He must be brought forward to testify. Written answers not acceptable.
The whistleblower should be revealed because the whistleblower gave false stories.
Some House Republicans, like Mark Meadows, are pushing to have the whistleblower testify in person.
I can't imagine that Chairman Schiff would allow written questions and answers for all of his witnesses.
This all comes while the president and his allies deal with impeachment proceedings and investigations into the president's phone call with Ukraine's president.
Foreign policy is not designed for the benefit of one person. It's designed for better world order. It's designed to further the goals and objectives of our country and our allies, and this did not do that.
Meanwhile, 4 White House officials subpoenaed by the House Intelligence Committee are not expected to show up Monday for their depositions in the impeachment proceedings, further angering Democrats.
To be no-shows, This will only further add to the body of evidence on a potential obstruction of Congress charge against the president.
Daryl Forges, KPBS News.
And it's not just impeachment irking the president. Once again, Trump is criticizing Governor Gavin Newsom over the handling of wildfires. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more on a threat to hold up emergency funding and the possible local impact.
You got fires eating away at California every year because management is so bad. The governor doesn't know. He's like a child. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Over the weekend, President Trump criticized Governor Gavin Newsom and California again, saying when the state has fires, they look for federal aid, but no more.
Very little that can be done to prevent those fires once they get going.
Bill Pascal is chief of the Alpine Fire Protection District. He says federal money is key for helping tackle wildfires.
We need federal dollars to help that happen because none of our small communities can afford to pay for these.
Large fires means local agencies have to request mutual aid, something the federal government helps pay for.
For a small agency like Alpine or a small city, if one of these large incidents happens, we don't have the funds to take care of that. And this helps reimburse us for those funds.
Pascal says losing federal funds would mean fewer crews are available to fight fires.
That would mean a lot of the smaller agencies like mine, small cities that send resources to help mitigate these large campaign fires or large natural disasters wouldn't be able to do that because they wouldn't be reimbursed for their time and efforts.
Governor Newsom responded to Trump's tweets by saying, "You don't believe in climate change, you are excused from this conversation." This isn't the first time the president has threatened to pull aid from California, and County Supervisor Diane Jacob is tired of it. In a statement, she said threatening to pull fire assistance is a slap in the face to firefighters, and the White House needs to put public safety over politics. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Firefighters made progress across the state this weekend. In Ventura County, farmers are returning to destroyed crops, including pricey avocados. This is a look at the damage in the town of Somis. A farmer there says he lost about 10% of his avocado trees, and they were burned by the Maria fire, which sparked last Thursday night and forced evacuations in the area. There was little that could be done to protect the crops.
When the fire comes through, it's amazing all the work we put in every year and year after year, and then just a couple of hours it just wipes it out.
Here's an avocado that was scorched on the outside, and I've cut it in half here, and you can see how there's damage already showing up on the inside. So this fruit will drop off and be ruined, and it'll definitely not be sellable.
The Maria fire burned more than 9,000 acres. There is no official cause. SoCal Edison says it re-energized a power line near the area shortly before the fire started. The Maria fire was first spotted with the help of remote-controlled cameras. So was the Kincaid fire in Northern California. The system is an investment in firefighting across the West. Reporter Mark Sire shows us how it works.
You might have seen some of these incredible images of the Kincaid fire, like this one from Geyser Peak. This image is a 24-hour time-lapse from a camera called Pepperwood East. You can see the winds whipping the flames with the trees blowing in the foreground. They are coming from a new statewide network of cameras, which have been coming online quickly since the 2017 Tubbs fire.
So we're up at Hawkins Peak, a little over 10,000 feet in Alpine County.
We caught up on FaceTime with Dr. Graham Kent, the director of the Nevada Seismological Laboratory, which initially launched this network on a small scale at Lake Tahoe. It now spans California, Nevada, and Oregon. Graham was talking while working at the site of a future California wildfire camera.
So the camera's the great equalizer. Within about a minute, you know what's going on.
Graham says the camera networks are monitored and can be controlled by emergency operations centers statewide. The live views are also available to the public. Most often, the cameras are used to quickly zero in and confirm initial reports, which is what happened with the Kincaid fire.
But you have to know early on whether it becomes an evacuation event or with an early, tactical airstrike. You need to know how to scale up.
The cameras are being used right now in Southern California to monitor the Maria fire in Ventura County. The network caught the initial start of that fire as well. Dr. Graham says now that the value of the cameras is so apparent, the expansion is moving along quickly.
And that was Mark Sayre reporting. People still need to monitor those cameras, but the next phase of the project involves artificial intelligence, which will allow computers to view and communicate fire activity at all times. It's the start of what could be a zero-emission future for buses in San Diego. Today, MTS began its pilot program for several new all-electric buses. Right now, they're just putting the buses through the paces on local streets, and they should be carrying passengers later this month. MTS says the buses will help them develop a plan to meet a state mandate that its fleet be zero-emission by the year 2040. KPBS got a closer look at these buses last week, and you can find that story right now at kpbs.org. And the San Diego City Council voted 5-4 today to place a measure on the March 2020 ballot that would raise hotel taxes to fund a convention center expansion, homeless services, and infrastructure improvements. The council also unanimously voted to place a measure on the ballot that would alter the selection and appointment process for the city auditor. San Diego County will have new satellite voting offices for the March primary election. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar tells us why there was some controversy today and why one supervisor refused to vote.
Monday, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors held an unscheduled meeting to vote again on whether or not to fund 4 satellite voting offices. The Registrar of Voters, Michael Vu, says the county needs the offices to comply with a new state law that allows same-day voting registration at all polling stations across California. Here in San Diego County, there are about 400,000 voting-age citizens who are not registered to vote.
The data shows, and my 23 years of experience also shows, that this is going to be an issue.
The satellite offices will be extensions of the registrar's office where citizens can register and vote on Election Day. Hopefully they'll make the lines more manageable and take pressure off of the 1,600 polling stations across the county.
We expect long lines at the Registrar of Voters office as a result of conditional voter registration, and we expect that at the satellite locations there will be long lines. What we don't want to have happen is this to occur at any percentage level of it occurring at polling locations throughout the entire county where it becomes unmanageable.
The total cost of the 4 extra offices would be around $900,000. Vu says approximately a third of that will be reimbursed by state and federal dollars. County Board of Supervisors Chair Diane Jacobs says she believes the county can be reimbursed for much of the rest, too.
Unfunded state mandates are wrong, and they're unfair. But this is not the first time we've been faced with an unfunded state mandate. Fortunately, there's a process to seek reimbursement.
Just last week, the board could only muster 3 votes to fund the centers, which didn't meet the 4-vote threshold. But Chairwoman Jacob asked for another vote. This time, the money would come from another source, meaning the board only needed 3 votes to fund the centers. Supervisor Kristen Gaspar, who voted against the centers last week, found the emergency meeting unethical and chose to not vote at all.
Today, there is no purpose in me casting a vote when the outcome has been predetermined by the very ones who scheduled the special meeting.
Supervisor Jim Desmond also voted against funding the centers last week. He did today as well.
Well, what I'm tired of these unfunded mandates by the state. And where do we draw the line? Is it here with the voting? Is it here with other issues? Where is it? When's it going to stop? People will still have the right to vote because all the polling places will still be open. No one is disenfranchising anyone's opportunity to vote here.
Supervisors Nathan Fletcher and Greg Cox said the cost to fund the centers is less than 0.01% of the budget. Ultimately, the vote to fund the centers was 3-1. Michael Vu says he's happy with the outcome.
It does give us another tool for us to use to alleviate some degree of the lines that will be created as a result of same-day registration.
Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, the first transcripts from the House impeachment inquiry are released. That's coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A guilty plea today by former NFL player Kellen Winslow II. He is the son of former Chargers legend Kellen Winslow. Today, on the eve of his second rape trial, Winslow reached a plea deal. It includes charges of rape of an unconscious teen and felony sexual battery involving a hitchhiker. In June, the 36-year-old Winslow was convicted of forcible rape and misdemeanor indecent exposure and lewd conduct involving 3 women. But jurors deadlocked on the remaining charges. Sentencing is scheduled for February. Apple is the latest in a trend of high-tech companies pledging billions to do something about housing in California. The company announced today it will invest $2.5 billion. That includes $1 billion open line of credit for the state to build homes for low and moderate incomes. Mortgage assistance help for nonprofits and homeless services will also be covered. Apple says it will also make some of its land available for building. Google and Facebook recently announced similar $1 billion pledges. You've heard about the complaints in neighborhoods about short-term rentals. Now, after a deadly incident in the Bay Area, the biggest name in the industry is taking action. Rick Damigella has more.
A Halloween house party turns deadly. 5 people shot and killed at this Airbnb rental in the San Francisco area.
Orinda is a very small, very safe, very family-oriented community. It is not accustomed to violence.
The shooting is still under investigation, but Airbnb is banning party houses at its rental properties to prevent similar incidents from taking place. The company's CEO tweeting, "We must do better, and we will. This is unacceptable." In additional tweets, Airbnb detailed a new course of action, saying it's implementing a more stringent guest screening program, creating a party house rapid response team, and anyone found in violation of the upgraded policies could be removed. Authorities say the Halloween party in Orinda, California was advertised on social media and more than 100 people showed up. The deadly shooting took place Thursday night at an Airbnb rental that specifically does not allow parties.
There are going to be folks that don't follow the rules. That's unfortunately the way the world works.
I'm Rick Damigella.
Baby Shark was a big part of Nationals fandom this season, and today it welcomed them to the White House to celebrate their World Series win. A few players skipped the event, but most were in attendance. President Trump was given a special Nationals jersey. The event wraps up a busy few days, which included a parade over the weekend.
Throughout this season, the Nationals captured the hearts of baseball fans across the region and across the country. America fell in love with the Nats baseball. They just fell in love with Nats baseball. That's all they wanted to talk about. That and impeachment. I like Nats baseball much more.
World Series MVP and former SDSU Aztec Stephen Strasburg made the trip to the White House, but where he goes from there is uncertain. The star pitcher has chosen to opt out of his contract with the Nationals to become a free agent. The Padres are in desperate need of pitching, and this weekend the San Diego Union-Tribune reported the team is likely to make him an offer. Wherever Strasburg goes, he's likely to get one of the biggest contracts in baseball. Fleet Week begins today in San Diego. It will be less windy in our area, but still very dry. Erin Calandra has a look at this week's forecast.
Well, we are seeing some pretty nice weather conditions all across San Diego County today. A lot less windy than it has been, and that is fantastic news. You can see on the satellite and radar, though, that we are still dry. No precipitation around here. We do have a couple of clouds moving in along the coast, but for the most part, we are still seeing clear skies. Here are the current winds. San Diego around 8 miles per hour, Oceanside as well. So with that, we are not seeing any red flag warnings or fire weather watches across the county. So that is fantastic news, but it's still dry. Look at those dew points. Vegas 10. Reno at 18. We're doing a little bit better at 40, but it is very dry across the deserts. And of course, when it's dry and windy, that's when we see that fire risk. So luckily, we're not seeing that at the moment. In Ramona tonight, 43 degrees, San Diego 52, and Oceanside down to 40. Borrego Springs clear at 52. Now, tomorrow we do have a high pressure system up to the north and east of us. That is going to give us a light breeze and offshore flow. So it is going to continue to be warm, but those winds are not going to be nearly as gusty as they have been. We could see an increase of those winds throughout this week, but again, nothing compared to what we saw last week. So for Ramona tomorrow, a high of 85 with that sunshine. San Diego around average, 73 degrees. Chula Vista as well. Mount Laguna sunny at 64, and Borrego Springs comfortable. Temperatures are in the upper 80s. It's going to remain dry and warm throughout this week. Again, could become a bit breezier. Along the coast, our temperatures will increase through the weekend to the 80s. Inland, we'll see temperatures in those mid-80s. And on the mountains, we'll be in the 60s with sunshine, pretty pleasant conditions there. And in the deserts, we'll be flip-flopping between the 80s and 90s, staying sunny and dry. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Two stories today show the extremes in the debate over climate change. The White House has given formal notice to the UN that it is beginning the process of exiting the Paris Climate Accord. But locally, we're seeing activism in the faith community. From the KPBS Climate Change Desk, Eric Anderson tells us how the Catholic Church is embracing the issue.
Scripps Institution of Oceanography researcher Veerabhadran Ramanathan painted a grim picture for the priests and lay leaders who came to hear him speak. He warned that 3 billion of the world's poorest people will bear the early brunt of climate change. San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy says there is no longer doubt the situation is serious.
Overwhelmingly, the scientific community in the world has concluded that climate change poses a tragic challenge to the whole of the human race in the coming years.
McElroy says San Diego hasn't taken up the issue with the alarm that is warranted. He says if people don't act now, they're taking away their children's future. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Workers are also demanding more from their companies on the issue of climate change. We're seeing it today at Google. An online petition now has more than 1,000 signatures from employees. They want the company to commit to zero emissions by the year 2030. That includes ending contracts that would support the extraction of fossil fuels. 1 year from tonight will be election night, and whether it's climate change or the rising cost of living, younger voters are taking action. They're also taking office. For the California Dream Project, KQED introduces us to Berkeley's youngest city council member at just 22.
My name is Rigel Robinson, and I'm a city council member for the city of Berkeley, California. Have a good day.
7 months after Rigel Robinson graduated from UC Berkeley, the 22-year-old decided to put his political economy degree to use. Robinson joined a surge of young people running for office in the midterm elections and won a seat on the Berkeley City Council, making him the youngest council member in city history.
We're having a national conversation about income inequality and economic inequality and wealth inequality and what that means for our society and for our politics. And it's important to remember that young people are being affected by that in a profoundly negative way, from student debt to struggling to get a job after you graduate. And I know that one impact of getting Rigel elected to city council is to raise attention to these issues in a way that maybe hasn't been done before, because we experience these issues so profoundly.
And now Berkeley is looking to be one of the first cities in the country to really re-examine its zoning map and think about how exclusionary zoning has affected what we can and can't build in different places, to make sure that our city is building the housing that we need to accommodate a booming Bay Area, while at the same time making sure that conversations about gentrification and anti-displacement efforts are at the forefront of everything we do. We need to get a little more creative with the space that we have to make sure that everyone that wants to call California home really can.
I think Rigel's election in 2018, I think it was a real turning point for our city in terms of legitimizing and recognizing students and young people as a force in politics, not a group of people to be ignored as people who don't vote or people whose opinions don't matter, but people who have substantial interests that need to be listened to by elected officials. And I'm hopeful that You know, as we see more and more young people getting elected to office, not just running campaigns, not just working as volunteers, but people who are actually getting elected themselves, that we'll see politics that is more and more accountable to our generation, which is the most diverse generation in the state's history.
There's a lot of conversation happening all over the country about the role of young people in politics, and I saw that firsthand. In November, 3 other dear friends of mine, also recent alums of UC Berkeley, were all actually elected to local office in their respective hometowns. And these are candidates who, you know, a few years ago, people weren't used to seeing people like that run for office, young people, people of color, but there have been voters waiting for someone like them to step up and to speak to their needs. And the more people actually do, the more people actually prove that you can, the more quickly government and this country is going to change for the better.
KPBS is part of the California Dream Project, a statewide public media collaboration. You can find more stories at kpbs.org/dream. And you can find tonight's stories on our website. That's kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.